Hello, everyone. My name is Fangda, and I'm assistant professor at the Department of Politics and Public Administration. My research area generally concentrated in the social equity issue in public service delivery with a special focus on employment and policy implementation. So it's my pleasure to share one of my current recent research on the possible sector differences in child penalty, which is also part of my ECS project. And I hope you enjoy it. So actually, I will first briefly talk about the research motivation, and then move to the theory and the hypothesis. And next, I will briefly talk about the methodology, especially for the specification, model specification of child penalty, and also how we calculate the sector differences. And I will also provide some findings based on the model. And lastly, I will give some concluding remarks with some implication for future research. So childbirth kind of exacerbate the gender equality in employment, and mothers typically assume like greater responsibility for parenting than fathers. And compared with men, women tend to encounter more job interruptions and more likelihood of transition to more flexible and lower paid jobs after childbirth. And to kind of measure this gender gap in labor market outcome after childbirth, the labor economist in Princeton, Cleveland, and his colleagues innovatively develops a measure, what we call child penalty, which is defined as the reductions in a series of labor market outcome for women relative to men following their parenthood. And public sector kind of commonly known as more family friendly as private sector. Specifically, they may encounter less influence by the market competition, especially for the specific employment and job positions. And moreover, actually the public sector position are more benefit from the work-life balance because of the institutional support and the state regulation comparatively compared to the private sector positions. However, we know little about the sector differences in the child penalty between public and private sector, which prompts our main research question: is whether women works in the public sector encounters less child penalty or not, or in other words, is the public sector a more friendly workplace than the public sector for moms? So to answer this question, my main argument is that women may encounter distinct child penalty in the public sector despite its apparent advantage in addressing the conventional employment disparity due to the childbirth. So specifically, I developed three hypotheses backing my main argument. So firstly, we can kind of perceive the possible sex difference from the perspective of job safety or job security. So comparatively, public sector tend to be the public sector position tend to be safer than the private sector counterparts, because most of the public sector positions are permanent ones and care more about the employees' well-being. Besides, the family-friendly policy are better enforced in the public sector than the private sector because of the state institutional support and the state regulation. So that we hypothesize that women in the public sector face less child penalty on the employment or labor market participation than the private sector. Besides, we can also perceive the possible sector difference in the child penalty from the perspective of the possible difference in pay schemes. So actually, in the public sector, there are more uniform pay structures based on the classification and the seniorities, and the wage schemes are comparatively the wage schemes are more performance-based and market-driven for the private sector employment compensations. And additionally, public sector and private sectors employ different human resource management logics. So actually for the private sector, they focus more on what we call hard model. We concentrate more on the organizational performance and which is more market driven, while public sector focus more on what we call soft model, which is aligned with public value, care more about the well-being of the public employees, so that we can also make our second hypothesis, which is that women who work in the public sector face less child penalty to their earnings than the private sectors. Additionally, we may also note that the family-friendly working environment in the public sector may inadvertently generate some distinct child penalty, which may not be encountered in the private sector for women. So on the one hand, this kind of more family-friendly working environment may rationalize the increased family responsibility for women after the childbirth. So, which means more proportions in the housework and childbearing for women than their spouse. Besides, this kind of the more secure workplace may foster a more conservative gender norms on the labor division between work and family. So, in other words, women are more likely than men to utilize the flexible work arrangement, which particularly after becoming the parents, which can reinforce the notion that family responsibility are primarily women's domain rather than the men's. So we can make the third hypothesis, which is that women who work in the public sector have greater and more persistent child penalty on working hours than the private sector. So to test our hypothesis, we utilized the China Family Panel studies ranging from, actually there are 7 waves, ranging from 2010 to 2012, including over 16,000 participants with a longitudinal records. And to kind of compare the child penalty between public and private sector, we only keep the sample only with first childbirth occurring between 2011 and 2021, when the parents were between 16 and 60 with available spousal data, because this is the reasonable year range to have children. So actually in this way we this kind of sampling allow us to have at least 1 year of observation between and after the first childbirth. And our analytical time frame ranges from 5 years before the first childbirth to the 7 years after. And to kind of calculate the possible sector difference between public sector and private sector employees, we apply the propensity score matching to match the public employee example with the private employee example based on their demographic characteristics. So after the matching, we have over 3,300 public sector employee participant in the CFPS, as well as over 9,000 private sector employees with the similar demographic characteristics. So our to kind of measure the child penalty and as well as the possible sector differences, our outcome of interest of labor market activities includes 3 dimensions. The first one is the employment status. Last year, we talked about whether this specific participant has job or not. And the other is the individual annual earning. And the third, our last dimension measuring the labor market activity is the monthly working hours. We also explored the underlying mechanism using the specific measures. So for the employment status, for the possible child penalty on the employment status, we conducted heterogeneity analysis based on the provincial parental leaves. And for the possible child penalty as well as the sector difference on annual earning, we applied the similar heterogeneity analysis based on the different level of provincial public spending for each preschool child. As for the monthly working hours, which can be distinct in the public sector, we applied 2 other additional outcomes, which in one of them is the housework ratio, which we calculate as the ratio of monthly working hours to the monthly housework hours. And another measure of mechanism underlying these outcomes is the spatial comparison in the perception of work-family split between women and their husband, which we can kind of measure the gender norms, whether it is traditional or egalitarian. So to kind of measure the child penalty, we adopt the model from Cleveland and his colleagues, which is frequently applied to many of their works. So compared to the traditional causal inference measures such as difference in difference and instrumental variables, event study specification is more efficient and explicit to identify the long-term and short-term effects of child penalty over time. So given the time limit, I will not provide the detailed deduction of the equations. So actually, simply speaking, child penalty just measures the relative difference in effects of first childbirth between men and women as a proportion of women's counterfactual labor market outcomes. And one of the innovative points of this specific project is that we develop a specific measure for the sector difference in the child penalty, which is the weighted difference between public and the private sectors. So actually, the first segment of this equation is the child penalty in the public sector, while the second segment of this equation on the right side of the equation mark is the child penalty in the private sector with the comparable samples. So now I would like to share with you some of the findings based on our model specification. So for the first dimension, the impacts of first childbirth on individuals' employment status, we can see that the child penalty in the public sectors is significantly less than the private sector. And we also calculated the sector differences, which means that the child penalty in the public sector is significantly 3.8% less than the private sector ones. Regarding the child penalties on the individual employment status. So actually the child penalty, the blue line represents the differences, the changes of the earnings of the employment status relative to the 1 year before the birth of the first child, and the red line measures the relative difference of the specific year relative to for the woman relative to the 1 year before the first childbirth. So actually, the child penalty we can regard the child penalty as the areas between the two lines. So for the second dimension, the impacts of first childbirth on individual monthly earning, we also identify the specific sector differences. As we expected, the child penalty on women in their monthly earning is significantly less in the public sector than the private sectors, which generates around 10% less in the public sector compared with the private sectors. Surprisingly, which is also what we expected based on our third hypothesis, there are distinct child penalty in the public sector. So we found that the public sector, the child penalty on women in terms of the working hours are significantly greater than the private sectors, which can be around 11% greater than in the public sector than the private sector. So we also explore the underlying mechanism for different dimension of child penalty, the dimension that leads to the sector difference in the child penalty. So for the first dimension about the employment status, we explore whether the sector differences in the child penalty in the employment status is sensitive to the different level of job security. And so we found that for the low parental leave, under the low parental leave, actually the sector differences is less than the high level parental leave, which indicates the higher level of job security, and also indicates the more significant sector difference in job security, because the public sector are kind of more enforce the parental leaves compared with the private sectors. Besides, we also find, we also test our, a few more slides. We also test our second online mechanism regarding the monthly earnings. We also find that the payments scheme, like the sector difference in child penalty is also sensitive to the pay schemes as we measured by the different level of public spending in the private school children's. And lastly, we also use the two measures to test the individuals, different sector difference in child penalty, which is sensitive to the family responsibility and different gender norms, which also affects the sector difference in child penalty on women in terms of the working hours. So we also use the robustness check. We applied the difference for child penalty separately in different sectors, and we also apply the triple difference for sector difference in the child penalty, and in which the delta, this coefficient, we use this, we kind of observe the sign and the significance of this coefficient to validate the significance and the size of the child penalty. Sector difference in the child penalties as well. So we also yield some conclusions based on our empirical findings. So first, women working in the public sector bear less child penalty on the employment and earning, which is conventional in the previous literature. And specifically, moreover, more importantly, we also found that there are distinct child penalties in the public sector. Specifically, women invest less time at work after childbirth compared with the private sectors. Specifically, family-friendly working environment may generate imbalanced division of women's responsibility between work and family. And family-friendly working environment may generate more conservative gender norm. And this also inspired the future research to explore these research topics in maybe at least two dimensions. So our finding on the one hand, our finding indicates that there are hidden gender inequalities in the work-life balance. So the more family-friendly and flexible jobs does not always mean work-life balance if women are assumed to take more family responsibilities. Moreover, more egalitarian gender norms should be advocated in the public sector to avoid its distinct child penalty and to make better use of the family-friendly policy. So I will stop here and open to questions.